Whoa, what an amazing story. I mean, that's really incredible. It's fun to hear how these things come about. So you hit on a couple of the benefits of Eon. You talked a little bit about, stress reduction. You talked a little bit about the inflammation and that. But I would love to dive a little bit more on this call into inflammation. So can you share with us a couple of thoughts? First of all, what is the role of inflammation in the body? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a mix? How does it work?
Well, I think what you would say is that biochemicals that occur naturally in the body are neutral. In other words, they're not good or bad. They're part of the life process. So we might think of things like amino acids as being good because they're precursors to hormones, peptides. They build up muscle tissue, collagen, protein. So we might think of that as good. And we might think of inflammation or oxidative stress as being bad, but that's really not the case. There's a very important role that inflammation plays in the body, and that's to tear down damaged tissue. So let's connect all of the dots here together for a moment. Let's say that someone gets an injury. Let's say someone bumps their knee, they get a cut, and the first thing that happens is the body will increase production of oxidative chemicals. Now, oxidative chemicals will kill things like viruses and bacteria. So when we get an increase in oxidative chemicals at an injury site, it's going to suppress naturally a bacterial infection. So it's a very, very good thing. Then what happens is the oxidative stress triggers a release in inflammation. And in this case, let's say it's an inflammatory cytokine. And the inflammatory cytokine is there to do a variety of things, but one is to break down damaged tissue so we can bring in new healthy tissue. And it's been discovered, as a matter of fact, in the San Diego area, not very far from our office, that the inflammatory cytokine acts as a signaling molecule for stem cells. So not only does it break down the damaged tissue, but the stem cells are attracted to the inflammatory cytokine, and the stem cells go to that site and then start to do their job and repair the tissue.
Wow. So you mentioned it, but there is a connection between stem cells. There's a connection between stem cells and inflammation. And so that leads to the next question, which is, in terms of the patches that we currently have, is there a certain synergy that can be found in Eon and perhaps the X39? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are some double-edged swords here with inflammation. Most people think of inflammation as being bad for a good reason, is because we associate it with chronic disease. So for example, rheumatoid arthritis is a disease that we would associate with a chronic state of inflammation. And generally speaking, what happens is that as people age, their natural production of antioxidants decreases. And so when there's an inflammatory response, and this is even now referred to as inflammaging, it's a term for low-grade inflammation that's associated with aging. This inflammation hangs around and can damage healthy tissue. So that's where inflammation gets kind of a bad rap. So now let's say that someone has an injury and they're a little bit older, and they're in this chronic state of inflammation. Now the stem cells are attracted to the injury, but they can't do their job because the inflammation kills off the stem cells. So the human body is always about balance, right? Our bodies were created to be in a state of balance. So that means we need a balance between antioxidants and the oxidative chemicals. We need a balance between inflammatory response and antioxidants and stem cell function in this case. So this is what makes X39 and Aeon such a fantastic combination, because we can mobilize the stem cells with X39. And if people do have chronic inflammation, they can manage it with Aeon. And now those two patches work phenomenally well together.